Now more of the Mark Moses Show on Sports Radio 95.9 The Fan.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Hope everyone's enjoying their day. We are now joined here on the Club 52 hotline by a new friend of the show who covers Major League Baseball for the Bleacher Report. His name is Joe Giglio. Joe, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Hey, I'm doing just fine. And are you like all these Major League Baseball writers where you're just traveling Florida and Arizona to check out all these teams right now?
You know what? It's a whirlwind for a baseball writer. I'm actually back. I'm in New Jersey right now, and the weather here is actually a lot warmer than it has been, so it's nice, but we have another cold front coming in, so I wish I was hanging out in Florida or Arizona right now.
That's a good point. Let's start with the biggest news today for Major League Baseball. The Atlanta Braves, problems with their starting rotation due to injuries, so they signed Irvin Santana, 1 year, $14 million. What are your thoughts on this move for the Braves?
I thought it was a desperation move to save their season, to be honest. And it's a good move because Santana's a good pitcher, and he's worth that money on a one-year deal. I do have some concerns about him. He's been up and down throughout his career, so a long-term deal, as he was seeking earlier in the offseason, would have come with some red flags. But on a one-year deal, I think he'll do a good job for them. And, you know, coming into this season, to me, they look like the fourth-best team in the National League. You have the Nationals, you have the Cardinals and Dodgers, obviously. Then you have them, and then with their injuries, it looked like they could fall back into the pack and maybe even miss the postseason. I think this keeps them on track, and they needed to do this.
What about those other guys in the starting rotation? What is the latest? I mean, are they going to really have to rely on Santana to give them 12, 15 wins this season?
I think they might. Yeah, Chris Medlin, the news is not encouraging. It looks like he could be heading for Tommy John surgery, which would obviously take him out the entire season. And Brandon Beachy, I mean, he was a sensation in a couple of years ago, and now he only made 5 starts last year and has suffered some bicep issues this spring training. So you wonder how healthy he is here. And without those two guys, they're going to need Santana to give them 200 innings. We're
here with Joe Giglio. He's a Major League Baseball writer for the Bleacher Report. You can follow him on Twitter. It's a good one. If you like baseball, Joe Giglio Sports. And I want to stick with the NL East. The other team that I think is making a lot of noise right now is the Washington Nationals with the Incredible Hulk Bryce Harper in the outfield. What are your thoughts on the Nationals in 2014?
I think they're as talented as any team in baseball. And last year was so disappointing because they came in off of the postseason berth of the year before, and obviously, Strasburg was shut down for that postseason berth. But last year, a full year of Strasburg, a full year of Harper, and I think most people expected them to qualify for the postseason and make some noise. And it seemed like they never got going. There was no traction until August, and by then, it was too little too late. But I look at that fifth team with now another full year of Strasburg, and Harper getting bigger and stronger and maybe even better than he was last year. And they add Doug Fister to the rotation. I think the sky's the limit here for the Nationals and the NL East.
Joe, you know, I heard a recent interview with Ryan Zimmerman, the third baseman, and he was talking about his new manager, Matt Williams. What are your thoughts on Williams? I mean, it's a first-year experiment. I know this is something new in Major League Baseball. I know we get Rob Ventura with the White Sox, but what are your thoughts on Matt Williams and the job he can do for the Nats?
So far, I've loved everything I've seen and heard. He came in very prepared and very thorough. You know, before spring training started, he had every workout and every day by the hour mapped out for what his club and what his players would be doing. And you don't usually see that kind of thing, around baseball, at least not to that detail. It reminded me a little bit of the NFL, Tom Coughlin, Bill Belichick type of coaches that plan and detail to the max. And he's been putting some defensive shifts on. He's clearly trying to get this team ready for April and May. And I think if they get off to a good start, the Nationals could get rolling.
What about the Miami Marlins? I mean, you got Gio Stanton hit 500-foot homers in spring training. You got Jose Fernandez, Rookie of the Year. What are your thoughts on the future and especially that farm system for the Marlins?
It's very good. It really is. And the question always is with the Marlins, how long will they keep these guys and will they be allowed to grow together? But I think people forget because they get so upset with the new stadium and so upset with how the owner down there pretty much duped the city into believing he was going to spend money. That people forget that a couple times that the Marlins have tried to win here and tried to build a young core, specifically 2003, it's worked and they've won. Now, they're not going to keep it together long term, but I could see a scenario here where a Stanton and Fernandez-led team surprises over the next few years. Maybe not this year, but maybe 2015 or 16. They could be a good team.
What about the other two teams in that division, the Phillies and the Mets? Can they compete in 2014, or am I asking for too much?
Well, I think the Mets, without Matt Harvey this year, it's going to be difficult. I do think they'll be better than they were the last couple of years and maybe even fight for 500, but I think 2015 is the year for the Mets. If they can get Harvey back and they can really put all their young pitchers in the big league rotation at the same time, that could be the year they turn the corner. And the Phillies, they are an old team with a ton of pitching concerns and a ton of injury concerns right now. And if it all went right, could I see the Phillies making a run through August of relevance? Sure, but if it all went wrong, they could be a disaster.
We're here with Joe Giglio on the Club 52 hotline, Major League Baseball writer for Bleacher Report. Give him a follow on Twitter. It's a good one if you like baseball, at Joe Giglio Sports. And let's switch gears. Let's talk about the AL East. I want to start with the Boston Red Sox, the defending world champions. I feel like I haven't heard much of them in the offseason. Am I crazy for saying that, Joe?
No, you're not. I think they want it this way, too. I mean, last year we didn't really hear much of them in the offseason. At least we didn't, their moves weren't popping headlines, when they bring in guys like Johnny Gomes and Ryan Dempster and Koji Uehara. These weren't the moves that anyone really wanted to talk about. Of course, they turned out to be pretty good ones as the Red Sox win the whole thing. And I think the Red Sox wanted it to be that way this year. It's going to be interesting because they're going to miss Jacoby Ellsbury. Was he worth the money the Yankees paid him? We'll see. But they will miss him, and I think they'll also miss Jared Saltalamacchia, who's now with the Marlins. So I don't think they're as good as they were last year, but they surprised me before.
How many question marks do you have on the New York Yankees? Because I think I might have 8 or 9 with all the different positions and the age of some of their starters. What are your thoughts on the Yankees in 2014?
There's a ton of potential there, but those questions have to be answered, and I don't know if the Yankees can find enough answers, enough positive answers to the questions to make it all the way to October. If they get in and all the questions are answered, they could be a special team, but it's so difficult to project when people ask you, do you think the Yankees can win a World Series? I wonder, can the Yankees make the playoffs? If everything goes right and Sabatia's velocity comes back and Tanaka becomes the pitcher they paid him to be and Mark Teixeira's wrist is okay and he's back to his old form, well, if those questions are answered and they make the postseason, sure they can win the whole thing because the questions have already been answered. But as of now, they're a difficult team to project because they could be great, and if they're not, mediocre is going to be very expensive.
What about Brian McCann? I mean, him at the plate, he's an all-star, but what about that starting rotation? I mean, can this guy make a difference to help this team?
Well, he seems like he's trying. I mean, the Yankees gave him an iPad loaded up with every start of the Yankees pitchers from last year to watch as soon as he signed. So he's trying to get himself acclimated. It's going to be difficult. I mean, this is an entirely new staff. He's never caught any of these guys. And you throw in the language barrier with Tanaka, and it's not going to be an easy transition. But as we both know, his bat will play. And with the short porch in right field in the Yankee Stadium, he could have a big offensive year.
What about the rest of the AL East? You look at Baltimore, Toronto, and I got to ask you about the Rays. What about these 3 other teams? Can they compete with the Yankees and the Red Sox for this division?
I think they can, especially Tampa and Baltimore, both teams that have now cemented themselves. I mean, Tampa's been doing this for a very long time, but Baltimore the last 2 years that have cemented themselves as a pretty good team. 92 or 93 wins in 2012 and 85 last year. The Orioles are for real, and they've added Nelson Cruz, added Ubaldo Jimenez to the rotation, so I think they're going to be in it. And the Rays, I would not be shocked if they win this division, if they outlast the Red Sox, outlast the Yankees. They've done it before, and the fact they kept David Price means they think they can win this year. The Blue Jays will be better, but I still would peg them towards the bottom of the division.
We talk a lot of Rays on this show, and I want to ask you about Will Myers, Rookie of the Year last year. Look, they stole him from Kansas City. He is a stud, but do you feel like maybe he might have that sophomore slump where people got tape on him now?
He could. I mean, this happens to plenty of players, and ones that turn out to be really good. The one thing about him that will translate and will play, even if he doesn't hit as well or consistently as the Rays hope, is that power is for real. And when he does connect, Will Myers is going to he's going to cause some damage to the opposing pitcher. So even if he doesn't hit as consistently as the Rays might like, I'd be surprised if he finishes a full season without 25 or 30 home runs.
We're here with Joe Giglio, Major League Baseball writer for the Bleacher Report. I got to ask you next about the Detroit Tigers. They traded away Prince Fielder, but is this still the team to beat in that AL Central? And I don't know, maybe even for the pennant in the American League?
I think they are. They're the team, even without Fielder, and I do have my questions about giving up on Fielder this quickly, and I think he'll do well in Texas. But I have the least concerns of any team in the American League as the Tigers. No one has less concerns to me, and I look at them with Cabrera and now Kinsler at the top of the order, and still an aging but very savvy and a good player, and Torrey Hunter, and it's just a great rotation, even without Doug Fister. I mean, they have a top three, and Scherzer, Verlander, Sanchez, that's as good as anyone in baseball. And I think they'll beat up on the bottom of that division with the Twins and the White Sox, and they'll be penciled in for October really without much of a sweat.
All right, two more for you. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate you coming on. How long does Robinson Cano stay on the Mariners? Is it till July, and then he starts demanding a trade? What do you think is going to happen?
I think he'll give it a few years and give them a chance to put the right pieces around him. But I think quickly he'll realize that it's going to be lonely out there. And if that team doesn't surprise, and I don't see them doing it this year, he's going to be hitting well, but he's a hitting machine. He'll hit anywhere and in front of sparse crowds and outside of the next Felix Hernandez pitches without much buzz in the ballpark. And I think sooner than later he won't be happy there. But I think for year one he'll kind of just be quiet and hit his .310.
Could you see, and I'll end with this, could you see the Dodgers with their huge payroll, and I know stars all over the place, could you see them still being buyers where they just keep taking on more contracts here in 2014 to compete for that NL pennant?
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are in a place where they're all in, and if they have a hole, and the one they have coming into the season, it looks like a second base. They did spend on the Cuban Guerrero to eventually be their second base, and we'll see how he develops. But if they see a hole, and there is a solution out there, or they think a solution, I don't think anything will preclude them from trying to go and get it. And they actually do have some promising young pitching prospects. So if an aging star or an expensive star hits the trade block and they think he could put them over the top, you never rule out the Dodgers because it's World Series or bust for them.
You got that right. Joe Giglio, Major League Baseball writer for the Bleacher Report. Give him a follow on Twitter at Joe Giglio Sports. Joe, it's very nice to meet you. I hope you have a great upcoming Major League season. And, yeah, I hope we can get you on again during the season.
Sounds great. Anytime.